For a video that was meant to come out just after New Year's, this is incredibly late, and for that I sincerely apologise. Numerous factors, work, life in general, stuff got pushed to the back burner. I've actually been sitting on a bulk of this footage since about January 4th? Yeah, January 4th? Makes sense. But it's here now. Essentially what we wanted to do is get it together as a group. We like these discussion videos. We've made one. We really enjoyed it though. In this, we just wanted to talk more about what we like as individuals. Games we like, games we don't like, and some opinions that we think not a lot of other people will hold. This is going to be quite a long one. It's going to be a lot of this. Sorry it's not our usual stuff, but we really did enjoy doing the Ready or Not one, and to be honest, it's kind of just a nice change of pace, just to sit around and talk absolute horseshit half the time. I also want to really thank Andy for making sure a lot of this footage got saved. Unlike the Ready or Not one, we're not going to have one category where it's all background footage and then it's all going to be us talking. We've actually got everybody sorted out the problem, hopefully. But yeah, again, sorry this is late. It is here. It is some of my best editing work, if I do say so myself, even though that bar is very, very low. It's very low. I'm not that good at this, but I'm trying. Anyway, please enjoy our round table XVI shoot the shit session. To start with, we spoke about our favourite games. Now we all have very different tastes, and to be honest, there were some real surprises in this category. Take a listen.
So, for my favourite game, we're going back 18 years now, because we're going back to 2004 on the PlayStation 2, and we're going to SOCOM 2 US Navy SEALs.
Fucking called it!
You called it, but it's because I loved the single player on that game. This was back when online play was only just starting to come in, because it was PlayStation 2, you had to have that module that plugged into the back of it. Not very many games had it, and it was sort of new, so single player was the main focus, and boy did I love that single player. And the online, that was my first foray into online gaming at all, and it got me hooked. I spent so many hours in that game, and we've since then been through the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and we're on to the PlayStation 5. Not that any of us actually own one of those, because they're like unicorn dust. And like I say, that came out in 2004, and we're here, 18 years later, and it's still hands down my favourite game. There's others that come close, but nothing has taken that top spot. So, I think that golden age of gaming was back then. I think it was late 2000s.
Your turn, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've slightly twisted it. Because I couldn't think of the game I like the most, because there are so many games throughout my life that, for different reasons, a bit like Pal, have been my favourite game. I suppose to answer the question openly, I guess, would be GTA Vice City. It was the game that turned me from someone who owned a games console into a gamer. I'm going to go with the game I expected to like the least and ended up really enjoying. And for that, I'm going to say Call of Duty.
Oh.
Which one?
Oh, so Modern Warfare 2 or the new Modern Warfare 1. Reason being is anyone who knows me knows that I do not deal with game stress very well, and I like games that are slow-paced and quiet. Ideally that I can pause. Ideally that I can be doing something else at the same time. So to give you a list of my most played games is Planet Zoo, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Planet Zoo with all its DLCs, World of Warships and Stellaris, which are all games that are pretty slow-paced. I thought I'd hate Call of Duty, and I hate almost all rapid first-person shooters. But Call of Duty they just nailed it. They just know what they're doing so well. If I had to pick another one, it'd be Door Kickers 2. Top-down games that are shooters, not really my cup of tea, but it's really good.
If you could please give us your favourite game of all time.
It's such a loaded question, so difficult to answer and narrow down to just like one or even two. It's either going to be the Mass Effect trilogy, because that's given me the most interesting story and interesting sort of background that I've ever played in a game. Dead Space, potentially, because I love the shit out of Dead Space. I've played that game like a dozen times through on just about every difficulty, apart from the hardest one, because I don't have enough time for that shit. But it could also be Dead by Daylight, because I've played that heaps. I've got just under 400 hours worth, which I know is like rookie numbers, but I really do enjoy that game. I really enjoy the sort of the dynamics of it and how it plays.
Gotta push them numbers up.
Yeah, rookie numbers. They're way too small. You're gonna have somebody in the comments just like 400 hours. That's nothing.
As much as I didn't want to have any repeats, I am actually gonna have to nick sort of one of Andy's, which is Mass Effect 3. I know a lot of people prefer 2 to 3. Going back, I actually find 2's almost going through a bit of an emo phase. There's it's unnecessarily dark in some bits, but 3 took every story beat, every character development, every arc from 2 of my other favourite games of all time, put it all in, came up with a great experience that, yes, the last 20 minutes or so aren't perfect, but there's a huge amount of game that comes before that's so damn good. Plus, you bring in the fact that it had one of the best DLCs ever brought out, which is Citadel, which is essentially, we want to do something for the fans, let's make a sitcom episode of Mass Effect and release it. And there's the fact it also had a surprisingly good multiplayer mode that nobody asked for, but now when the Legendary Edition was announced, everyone was like, where's the fucking multiplayer? And they didn't bring it out. Mass Effect 3 is, in my opinion, like the best of BioWare has ever been, and it shows so much how shite Andromeda was compared to 3.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
It kind of put every complaint people had about 3 was like eclipsed by Andromeda, which if it didn't carry the Mass Effect tag would probably be like a halfway decent game, maybe. But yeah, Mass Effect 3 is the best game I've ever played, full stop. So yeah, I think we knew what Ollie was going to do, but I don't blame you, mate, because I remember watching, I think you showed us like how many hours you played on that.
Oh, it was disgusting.
Thousands.
Oh,
it was
God,
like
yeah.
3,500
or something?
No, it was 3,500 on my online account.
1,000.
Yeah. I mean, this was over the course of several years. But yeah, it was 3,500. But at the time, there were so few games online that you could play online. Yeah. So you played the same one over and over. And this was before I really had any games that play with any of you, because it was still back, like I say, it was very early days of PlayStation.
It was the days of old cheat discs and getting the codes properly.
Yeah, but it's somewhat sad, but it's like I could probably still draw you a map of Crossroads because I knew, again, the maps were so small because there was only for that game it was 16 players, it was 8 on 8, so the maps weren't particularly large and there wasn't a ginormous map pool. And again, because it was old days, it wasn't loads of DLC, so what you had is what you had, and you were like, this is amazing. So yeah, I played the hell out of that game.
I have to say, Snake, when you said Vice City, usually when people talk about GTA, they go back to San Andreas. Like, I agree with you. Vice City, I think, is a more focused game. But what makes you?
Yeah, so San Andreas is a better game. I mean, objectively, if you take nostalgia out of it, they are objectively better from one, however you want to number it, from past to future. They have objectively gotten better. I think the things, obviously, if we exclude, what was it, GTA 4, that was just dire. That one can just burn. But the rest of them, I think it's the thematic element that made Vice City for me, plus the nostalgic element. I loved being in that. It was so over the top. It was so grandiose. It was like they'd taken every mobster movie from the 60s to the late 90s and smashed them all in there together to make the most, I think, interesting world to be in. And I think it was also at the age when I was old enough to start understanding it. I remember playing GTA 3 that I got off of friends, and I was too young to really understand what's going on or to really engage with it. By the time I got San Andreas, which is a truly stunning game, by the time I got San Andreas, I still loved GTA, and I still love it to this day, but I had crested the wave of oh my god, how amazing is this game, and it just rolled into another great GTA. Whereas I didn't own any open world games before GTA, and then I eventually got, what was it, Morrowind or something, one of the Skyrims. But it was open world, it was big, you lived your own life, you could change your character's outfit, you could buy properties, you felt like a real mobster in a way that no other game managed. Plus, it just came at the right time for me. So I think that's why I like Vice City. And if I go back, it's still got the best soundtrack. And it's got the best radio stations.
Have you just inadvertently given your unpopular opinion? Because Radio X is up there for me.
Radio X is okay, but it's not as good. I still listen to, what was it, VCPR Talk Radio.
Talk show, yeah.
I've got that on my phone. It's 3 hours long, and I listen to it on long drives.
I am much
all over the studio.
Okay, I will give
morality.
you that. I will give you that. I'm about to say,
as a mother.
I'm about to say to me, if Dead Space is on your list, I bet you can't wait for the Callisto Protocol.
There's 5 games coming out this year, and I'm so glad that survival horror is making this little tiny bit of resurgence, even if a lot of them are remakes of very popular games. We've got Resident Evil 4 that's being remade and completely remade from the ground up. You got Silent Hill 2, completely remade from the ground up. Dead Space, again, completely remade. The Callisto Protocol, I've already bought it. I'm going to be streaming it on Friday as soon as I can. I'm probably going to stream it for the rest of the weekend as well. And there's another survival horror, because there's 5 of them that are all coming out that are all very similar but groundbreaking from their own perspective angles, with the possible exception of Callisto Protocol, because we don't know what it's going to be like yet. It might be shit. Who knows? But from the look of it, it doesn't look like it's going to be bad.
I mean, you've got the original dev team behind Dead Space basically saying, fuck EA for turning our series into some bullshit.
The other Dead Spaces weren't bad. Dead Space 2 is a great game.
Yeah,
Dead Space 3 is fine.
Yes.
But that's the thing. For a horror game, it's not great.
No.
As a horror game, it's shit. As an action horror, it's fine. But Dead Space and Dead Space 2 had such groundbreaking atmosphere and sound effects. Everything was just constantly, you never had a safe space in Dead Space and Dead Space 2. But Dead Space 3 was I know there's going to be something around that corner. Oh, yep, there it is. All right, I'll be safe for another 10 minutes or so. But with the others, there's always a vent just there. And it could pop at any second. Something could crawl out of it any second. But you don't know. It's random. It's entirely random.
And now, because talking shit is always more funny, we spoke about our least favourite games. And let's just say some real boundaries were pushed on this topic.
Unfortunately, it's The Last of Us Part 2. I was so hyped for that game. I loved the first one. The first one just was an absolutely stunning game. And then the second one, what they did is they took the first one and said, hey, you know all those people that you like and all those things that you care about in the first one? We're going to kill them. So you know this person, Joel, he gets his face caved in by a golf club by someone you don't know, then you're forced to play as this person who you don't like because they've already killed off a person that like a character that you've enjoyed, and you're forced to play as them. And this game forces you to like this person, and you don't. But it's like, imagine if somebody came into your house and killed your mum, and then said, "Hey, I'm your new mum now." And you're gonna love it. You're gonna love me. Your mum's dead, by the way. She's still rotting back there. And every so often, you'll have a little flashback of her, and you'll have a nice little memory. But I'm actually your mum now, and you better like it. It was just a really fucking awful experience. The game was too long. It had a really shit resolution. So there's a bit where you're playing as Abby, this new person that you take over control of, who's killed Joel, this other person that you like. And then the first thing that you get to fight Ellie, who's another character in the game, who they turned into just this like awful human being for no reason whatsoever. They turned her from this very sarcastic, very witty character into this like really fucking awful human, just a really unlikable character. But anyway, the first thing you get to fight her as Abby, as your new mum. And the first thing I did was I ran up to Ellie and stood there and let her kill me. Because I was like, it's cathartic. I don't want to play as this character. I don't like this character. It's emotionally manipulative in a really bad way. Fuck that game.
In your own time?
As cliche as mine is, again, it's Battlefield 2042, because no other game has had me so hyped for so long. And then when you are at just like peak, like this is going to be like, we've been setting this up for several years. We've had iterations of Battlefield. The community, they've been going gradually downhill. And the community has got together and said, look, this is what we want. We want the destruction from Battlefield 4. We want the town maps and the city maps from Battlefield 4. We want like the movement from Battlefield 5. We want the atmosphere from Battlefield 1. We want the sounds from Battlefield 1. We want all these things, and we want you to put them together in like a big mixing bowl and add a bit of this and add a bit of that and add some nice HD graphics on like, the PlayStation 5 technology or like new computer hardware, which, let's be honest, everyone was like, this is going to be good. And they put out those little teasers, with half the skyscraper coming down and all the men moving, and everyone was like, guys, they've done it. They have done it. They've listened to the community. They've put it together, and this is going to be it. And then they released it. And a bit like, well, let's go back to the analogy that Powell's mum used. It's a bit like when the DICE development team got together and went, okay, so this is what they want. And then proceeded to get a shotgun out and just executed your mother in front of you and went, oh, no, that looks really good. Yeah, we'll sell them this. And they just sold you. They just sold you the decrepit corpse of what used to be your loved one. And they went, this is sort of Battlefield, have this. And it was, I paid £80. I pre-ordered it, never doing that shit again. Paid 80 quid. I had a brand new PC at the time, not super high end, but solid enough that it should have run this thing. And Jesus Christ, it was awful. There was no optimization. It was buggy. There was so many decisions that were made by managers and accountants that weren't thinking. There was the cringy voice lines after everything. The vehicle balance, well, there wasn't any balance. It was just a selection of vehicles where the hovercraft was more lethal than a main battle tank, because that makes sense.
If you ran them over than if you shot them as well.
Yeah, you couldn't actually shoot anyone because the ARs had a range of about that. There was so much recoil that you couldn't hit anyone unless you were 2 foot away from them. The maps were ginormous, which sounded great until you realised that actually it was just called Running Simulator 2042. It was just, and I have never ever seen the community collectively go, what the fuck was this? There was nobody liked that game at the start, and I've never seen a game on Steam go from like so many concurrent players to like 1,000 players in the space of about a month, 2 months. Absolutely just honestly, like, how they managed to get that game so wrong, I will never know. Because like the community, and it's no secret what the community wanted, and how they managed to make so many wrong decisions, I will never know. And they burned so many people with that game. They burned so many people who pre-ordered it. They burned so many long-term fans who went, you know what, this was your chance, and you fucked it completely. I'm going to Call of Duty. I've given up gaming. Whatever. So many fans, and just.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it was the giving up gaming thing that had me there. Fuck this! I'll just take my big PC and throw it out the fucking window.
There was people with 3090s, on YouTube going, I've got, at the time the best GPU, and I'm getting 40 FPS. It was just the optimization was just so far removed from what it should have been. It was just such an absolute abysmal thing, which was a problem I found, because 2042 should have done to Battlefield what Modern Warfare 2019 did to Call of Duty. Like, it should have been their sort of re-rise to fame. It should have been a £1 billion game overnight, and it might as well have been a 1p game. Like, it was awful. There was so many problems I had with it.
So, in university, you're expected to make some really stupid decisions. Instead of becoming an alcoholic or a drug user, I bought Quantum of Solace, the video game.
Oh no! Did you not see the film?
I did.
It was awful.
One of my unpopular opinions in film is I actually kind of like it a bit. But no, right. In my defense,
This will be good.
it was made by Treyarch, who were, at the time, still respected. It was using the same engine as Modern Warfare 2, I think. They'd boasted that they'd gotten Daniel Craig's likeness and voice, that they got a bunch of the cast to come back, apart from Eva Green and Olga Kurylenko for some reason. They also used it as a way to put in both Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, so I thought, it could be good. And the fact it was like a cover-based shooter with some stealth, I'm like, this, you know what? A Bond game like this hasn't been as interesting since Everything or Nothing, which, by the way, is fucking awesome, and you should play it. Yeah. When I played it, it was buggy, it was rough as all... It was... it crashed. You couldn't aim properly. The contextual takedowns were consisted of 3 separate animations. 3. The best level in the entire game is when you are drugged, poisoned, and trying to run, and you don't actually fight or talk to anyone. They couldn't even get any driving sections, which for anybody who's played a load of Bond games, they at least have good driving sections. No driving sections at all. And what's even worse is that they shoehorned in extra bits to make it as if those 2 films were more action-packed than they were. So the bit in Casino Royale where he's talking to Eva Green's character on the train, right? It's a cool bit of character work. Where they're just they're just trying to measure each other out. They shoehorn in the idea that Bond has to go kill someone in 2 carriages over, but to get to the guy, he has to climb out of the train as it's moving, go across the roof, and have a fight on the top of it. Yeah. Fuck that. It made the GoldenEye Rogue Agent game look like a masterpiece, and it made the fucking 007 Legends game look like they were well thought out non-cash grabs. Fuck Quantum of Solace.
It turns me on when you're angry.
Stop, I can only get so erect.
After you.
Sound like my mum who's angry with me.
We are angry at you all the fucking time.
You're lucky I'm here. I'm the fulcrum upon which this team is pivoting. So, worst game. I mean, 2042, it probably is it, isn't it? Objectively, is probably what was promised versus what was delivered, probably the worst game I've ever owned. But don't want to say the same. So I want to say something a bit controversial. So some games that I expected to like the most but ended up hating. So the opposite of my first one. Fallout 76. Fallout 4 is my third most played game of all time. I have spent 400 hours on that game, or on Steam, to be clear. I think I've spent a lot more hours on the PlayStation in the past. I think Battlefield I had about 1,000 hours, but on Steam, most played game. 76 was just so boring. It was so dull. There was so little to do. Your choices meant nothing. Which leads me on to my second one, No Man's Sky.
Ah,
For
yes.
the exact same reason, and unfortunately you two are going to hate me for number 3, but we'll come to that. No Man's Sky. So boring. There was so little to do. Like, the idea was brilliant. The premise absolutely gripped me. I was like, yes, I love the idea of this traveling around, seeing different places. It's all procedurally generated. You know, you never go to the same place twice. There's going to be a backstory. We're not going to tell you much about that because don't worry, it's coming. And I actually played it, and the first 3 places I went, I was like, this is amazing. And then I was like, so what do I do? And the answer was nothing. There was nothing to do. There was no actual game. It was Microsoft Flight Simulator in space without any of the simulator. It was truly, truly tedious. They have made it better, but I'm not willing to accept games as being great if it requires multiple long-term DLCs to make them brilliant. Or at least not in this category. And my third one is Mass Effect 3.
You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half.
You whore.
I truly hate that game. I love Mass Effect 1. It was one of the very first what would you call it? Sort of railroad shooters I ever played. It's not railroad truly, but it's very strip mall, isn't it? Like, you're always between 2 very key objects that keep you going in the same direction. I don't actually know what that term of game is, but
On
I really
rail.
enjoyed it.
Like linear?
Linear shooters, whatever you want to call them, as opposed to like Red Dead Redemption. I really enjoyed Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 2 was brilliant. It was like big sci-fi. It was like what I wanted a sci-fi game to be. Like, I felt like I was in space. I felt like my actions were meaningful. I felt like I was making decisions that changed the world. And when I got to the end of Mass Effect 2, so obviously there's a big gap before Mass Effect 3, I thought, what do I want Mass Effect 3 to be? And I said, the action of Mass Effect is all right. It's pretty good, it's all right. But what makes Mass Effect amazing is the fact that I feel like my actions have consequences and I am building this world around my decisions. And then Mass Effect 3, I literally could have got my dog to make the decisions and it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game in any meaningful way, which really upset me. And then, beginning of it, there was no time to breathe. Mass Effect 2, you're like, I've saved the world, or the unit, or the galaxy. The Reapers are gone, everything's in order, Citadel's up and running, we're doing some repairs. And then 3, they're like, oh, it's been 18 months. Everything you did in that game has been totally undone. All of the same bad guys are back trying to do the same thing. Oh, by the way, they're a timeless empire and you only managed to set them back 2 years. So actually, your actions were totally meaningless. You're the same guy, slightly more jaded and somehow even less funny than he used to be. And you're going to go through this game making the exact same decisions as you made in the last 2 games. Like, every time there was a cutscene with the council and they were like, oh, what should we do about the Reapers? It's like, guys, we've been here before. This is the 3rd time round. You just a broken record. What do you think we should do? And then at the end of it all, or not at the end, but, as you go through, you're like, oh, by the way, those plans you found 3 weeks ago, yeah, don't worry, we've made them into a super weapon that it turns out can just defeat the whole problem anyway, so actually nothing you did between now and then made the blindest bit of difference. And then at the end of it, you have 4 choices, or it depends if you've gone Paragon or Renegade, doesn't it? But you've got a couple of 3 choices, all of which are rubbish because none of them fit thematically with, I'm willing to accept that when they brought out some of the DLCs and they did change a lot of the ending and they did make it better. I'm told. I refuse to go back and do it, but I'm told. I remember just getting to the end of that game eventually and being like, God, I hate this. I hate that I spent all this time getting to this point, and I don't care because I hate all of these choices, and they're rubbish. Also, the pacing's really weird. It starts off really dramatic, like everything is at risk, then it just gets really sluggish in the middle, and it's just side quest after side quest and scanning missions. So you thought they were a good idea. Also, the cover system was tedious. I get it. It came out, 2012? It was about Call of Duty, which interestingly I just said was my favourite game. And this is the problem. And this is what Battlefield did wrong as well. It came out at the same time of Call of Duty, and they sat there and they said, what sells? Action. What did Call of Duty do well? It literally dildo slaps you in the face with action until you die. You cannot get enough action. It's all over your face, and it's just constantly coming at you and never ending. And that's what Call of Duty did well. And so they go, what do we want? Should we continue building this beautiful universe with incredibly intricate and interesting lore where everything you do really changes everything, and you've got to really think about... No, you just pick up any old random fucking shotgun and just go walk through a level pressing the cover button repeatedly, because that's really all you had to do by that point. Oh, move cover, move cover, move cover, move cover, shooting a bit, and then the game ends. And so my least favourite game of all time is Mass Effect 3, because there's a reason that Mass Effect 1 is in the Smithsonian Museum of Art and Mass Effect 2 and 3 are not, because that first game is pure art. They made probably the best sci-fi game ever made, I would say, and I just don't think Mass Effect 3 managed to follow it up. And I blame Call of Duty, my favourite game, for that.
You don't usually hurt me to my core, Rowan. Very rarely have you hurt me to my core. If I had a will,
say this or not, because it might really upset you.
If I had a will and you were in it, I would write you out.
What? Am I not in your will? You
No,
I will.
Look, but here's the thing: is as much as it does hurt me, I do get it. Because those endings, even I have to admit, even with the extended cut and all the bullshit they tried to pull afterwards, it wasn't enough, and it was the start of BioWare's complete and utter downfall. And I can blame EA for a lot, but I can't blame that. I can't blame them, because BioWare should have stood firm and said, no, you need us to make this, not the other way around. But
yeah, I agree.
EA definitely dicked over Battlefield, because you know what they were trying to recreate with that? Fucking Apex Legends.
Yeah.
If that game did not exist, we wouldn't have had a shitty Battlefield 2042.
Partially, you're right. They definitely tried to jump on the whole hero shooter aspect with specialists, but I don't think you can say if that whole genre never existed at all, I don't think 2042 would have been any different, because EA made that game on what can they monetize, and the answer was they tried to monetize everything, and they released it in such a state where there was so little content to start with. There was 12 guns or something? I mean, God's sake, in some of the games you can carry more than 12 guns on your back. They basically had it in such a way they were like, guess what all the stuff you can buy later on this is, and everyone was like, this is a terrible game, we're not buying it. They were like, oh,
I did have to laugh at all of their dev blog things. It's like, we've heard you, we know what you want. It's like, do you? Because this is the 12th fucking time you've said this.
We've listened to your feedback, and we're going to ignore it because our accountants think they know better. That is one of many problems with 2042. The lack of content, the lack of weapons, the lack of interactivity between everything. Like the fact that the helicopters can sit at this level of the map and shoot the ground, and your AA missiles can get to this level of the map, and there's no emplaced guns anywhere, there's no static AA, there's no nothing. So if you want to get rid of the helicopter, you have to hope that the helicopter pilot that's hovering up here has a heart attack in real life and crashes, because otherwise you're never getting them out of the sky. And that's that.
As Moose and Snake pointed out as well, like those games subjectively got better with time. No Man's Sky, Fallout 76, and Battlefield 2042 got subjectively better with time, with updates, with patches, with free DLC and free gifts and stuff like that. But ultimately, when a game's released, that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for that game several months down the line. You're not paying for that game several years down the line. What you're paying for is the product now. And if the product now is broken, buggy, literally unplayable, or not what it was promised, whether it's basically a carbon copy of another game, at the end of the day, that's what your money's gone to. And that's where your faith in that product ends. So all goodwill is burnt out. Yeah. Regardless of, people can say, "Oh, No Man's Sky is so good now." It's irrelevant. I'm not interested. Yeah. I bought that game on release. I played it on release. It was shit on release. I'm not going to go back to it now and go, "Oh, well, it's good now." I don't give a fuck. There are other games now. There are other games that did what they wanted to do better. So I'm just, sorry.
And I think I will always give them, I'll give them 3 or 4 weeks, because we all know that these games are massive, and I will tolerate a little bit of difficulties in the first 3 to 4 weeks as long as the core gameplay is solid. Yeah. As long as I'm so a good example of that I think would be Ready or Not. So if you took someone who doesn't massively like that genre of game and put them on it, they would probably say it was crap, because it's still very buggy. It's not very intuitive. There's a few things in it that are really weird, but most importantly, it's not very fun to play, because they've designed an AI that cheats so he can see you through walls, for anyone who doesn't ever play it. It has literally superhuman reaction time. So people have done stop frames and seen that the average AI in Ready or Not can respond in 1/200th of a second, whereas the fastest human response time ever recorded is 1/20th of a second. So these drug addicts are 10 times faster than the fastest people in the world of all time.
Maybe that's where they're going wrong. Maybe they should give these people who are doing reactions, just shoot them up with meth or something. Give them a bit of speed and see what happens. We're breaking records left, right, centre.
Maybe they're on that. Maybe we're on that drug from Dread, slow-mo. in world reason for it.
Yeah.
But the game is solid. It's a good game with a lot of potential. And I'm willing to say that it was released as a beta. They're open and honest about its flaws. It wasn't all that expensive, although Supporters Edition was quite expensive. And they are working to fix it. Now, I must say, even on that game, my patience is drawn a little thin now. But Battlefield's really different. The core gameplay was bad. The core concepts were bad. The changes they had made, as Moose said, made the game worse rather than better, with no foreseeable way of simple fixes making the game better. And so what we got, if it didn't have the title Battlefield, you would call it an average B-list shooter.
Yeah.
But what we got was not Battlefield in really any semblance. It didn't have any of the things that had ever made Battlefield good. And so I am told, based on Reddit and YouTube, that actually Battlefield's quite good now. No, that bridge is burnt. It was terrible. It was so terrible. And the fact that they pretended that it was good and they tried to maintain optimism. If you go back, we were talking about this on a walk a couple of days ago, go back to Battlefield 3. The devs were so active on Twitter and they were really open and honest about all the problems and very, very responsive to the community. 2042, it literally felt like they were just talking to themselves. Like they had pre-programmed all of those news updates and they were just on a schedule to be released, and that nothing anyone said bore any relationship to what they came back with. Terrible game.
It goes back to, I think we've had the sort of golden age of gaming, because if we go back to the PlayStation 2, for example, games shipped and that was that. You could do major patches on the PlayStation 2, but it was very difficult. You could have DLC on PlayStation 2, but you needed other hardware. It was very difficult. So the game you shipped is the game that, let's be honest, was going to be out there for 5-10 years. So it had to be good, because if it was buggy on release, that was it, game over. You couldn't patch things. And I think that forced developers to really playtest things, it forced them to be realistic, and it forced them to only kind of produce what they could actually produce. Whereas now, unfortunately, a victim of technology, companies can put out this half-assed product and go, oh, it's a live service. So we've only actually built the first 40% of the game. We've charged you full price for it, and now we're going to build the next 60% as and when we can be bothered over the next 5 years. And that's that. There's nothing you can do about it. But that's because the technology allows them to do that. And now they put out 40% of a game, they get rich off it, they get all that initial sales glut, and then people move on to another game because it's shit, and they go, great, we got paid 100% profit for 40% effort. Well, why wouldn't we not do this more often? There'll be some people that we can milk, these so-called whale gamers, that we can milk for DLC over the course of a time. We'll put the minimum dev team on it, and then we'll go and make something else. They kind of lost the passion. At the moment, it's just they can put out whatever they want. It's going to sell, and people can move on. But that never used to be the case. It used to be a case of those developers were putting their name to that disc, that hardware, and that was that. That was what people judged them on. So I kind of think that we are a bit of a victim of technology in that, and that's never going to change. It's only going to get, live service is the new tagline that all companies absolutely bloody love, because it means that they can put less effort in for more money, and I think that's a real shame. But I don't see anyone coming around from that.
Could you imagine if any other media did that? Could you imagine if you bought a book, like let's say J.K. Rowling releases the next Harry Potter book. Holy shit, a new Harry Potter book. You buy it on Kindle, because it's only available on Kindle. And you get it, and there's the first 4 chapters. And you're like, what? What the fuck is the rest of it? And they're like, oh yeah, we're still writing it? Yeah, she's hard at work on the typewriter. And, Harry is spelt wrong. And they get something on the backstory wrong. Like, I don't know, like Hermione's now a sponge or something. And and then they're just like, they sort of go, oh, well, what we do is we'll patch that in. So the next 6 chapters are going to be on a specific roadmap. And we've lined it out. And the end of the book, there'll be a DLC as well, where you could buy the extra part of the book. Isn't that fascinating? And if you get the season pass, you get all of the chapters before everyone else does, plus a little bit extra where we fucking fact-checked it and spell-checked it as well. So there's one person with like the first 4 chapters, and they're just like, Harry's not even a wizard in the book. It's just, his name's Jeff, and he's a janitor.
It's
what?
Right. It would be like going to watch Top Gun Maverick in the cinema, and all the first scenes and stuff. And you're like, wow, this is incredible, and then it just cuts to a shot of
screen with Tom Cruise going.
Yeah, or then it cuts to a shot of like some porter cabin where they're having a discussion, and there's like some guy in the background with 2 planes going meow.
Technically, hasn't George R.R. Martin made that his business proposal? Because aren't we still waiting for the end of
still waiting
Game
for the
of Thrones?
last book?
That's why we had a shit season 8. Apparently, I don't know. I never watched it.
We had a shit season 8, but
he's not the only reason.
And after talking about our worst video games, we decided to go even further down our own personal rabbit holes and speak about our unpopular opinions.
So, I just haven't delved deep enough into some of these things, but I think I was reading some unpopular opinions online. I was like, I kind of agree with some of those. So I was going to go with mobile gamers are not gamers. Like, if you only play games on your mobile phone, you're not a true gamer.
I mean,
yep, I thoroughly agree with that. Mobile gaming is absolutely not
an unpopular opinion, but that's very gatekeepy.
You do realise that, like, that opinion brings Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, and PC players in an agreement.
Well, the thing is, though, is mobile gaming these days is worth billions. Like, it's a disgustingly huge amount of market. So there clearly is a market for it, and they keep pumping out new Clash of Clans or whatever other horseshit they push out. And like, there's hundreds of thousands of mobile games, and I just maintain that they're all terrible, and that doesn't make you a gamer at all. Like, I maintain that one. I mean, yes, there are other ones, like with certain franchises, but I also feel that I don't play enough of those franchises to really qualify to have an unpopular opinion on them. So I'm going to sort of stay clear of them. But yeah, that's going to be mine.
All right.
The least
I'm gonna be
controversial opinion we've ever had.
Meanwhile,
The one we
I do
agree
not
with?
have. I do not have that amount of honor when it comes to franchises, because, I mean, Final Fantasy. I know it's one of the most popular franchises ever made. A lot of people say it was like their reason they're gamers, and I know Final Fantasy VII is probably universally beloved. The entire series is hot garbage.
They're all the same.
Hot fucking garbage. And Final Fantasy VII, I went back and I watched a playthrough of the PS1 version, right? It is the most melodramatic piece of amateur dramatic shit I've ever seen. Like, I'm sorry. I know Rowan's just destroyed Mass Effect 3 for me, but I can name 5 more emotional deaths in that series than Aerith's death in Final Fantasy VII, and everybody's like, it was the saddest thing ever. It broke my heart. I'm sorry.
Spoilers, Jesus.
Oh, I don't give a shit.
What is it, like a 20-year-old game? I think we can give it a break now.
Yeah, it'd be like
Statute of limitations ran out on that.
Yeah.
Be like saying, spoiler alert, Snape kills Dumbledore at this point.
What?
Spoiler alert, Darth Vader is his father.
It's just like, it's a series that has always stuck to, and I have a problem with JRPGs in particular, because this whole, for combat, we're going to line up Civil War style and trade shots with one another. That shit is boring. And
That's exactly what happened to the combat in the first Assassin's Creed game, which I always point out to you and you get really defensive about. But it's true.
Don't make me come to your house.
It's true. Literally all the guards would stand around you in the thing going,
right,
oh,
but the
you
thing is,
bashed my friend, now it's my turn.
Right. At least in Assassin's Creed, you can move around, you can throw down smoke bombs, and you can disengage, right? In JRPGs, you both line up, you can't exit, you can't run away, or at least you have to use something in order to... You have to do something and lose.
There's usually like a run or escape option, even like
have
Pokemon. There's
have
like
I interrupted anybody else?
No, we're interrupting you.
Look, maybe the fact is I'm not a massive fan of anime as well, and maybe I just don't get the styles, but I always find the stories are well and truly stupid. I find the voice acting in the newer ones so bad. I find the combat of JRPGs boring, and I find the character design laughable. Like Cloud from Final Fantasy with that, the hair that looks like he's stood next to a Van de Graaff machine and a sword that no one should be able to fucking hold.
It's more the fact that all the female characters, like slider bars, and they were like titties.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
I in some ways I do understand that for some people it's like they had to make choices over what games they had, and it was not a lot was available at the time. And again, I'm lucky in the case I've had a huge choice to go from, and I came to gaming like at the start of the PS2. I did have a PS1, but it was like in the last few months of the PS1's life cycle. But I'm sorry, Final Fantasy is a series that's completely lost on me, and the only time I've ever played a JRPG are when they are very much Western inspired. So like the Judgment games, they're awesome because they are like noir detective thrillers with some weird Japanese quirks, and they're that. But Final Fantasy can get in the bin, as far as I'm concerned. I feel cleansed after that.
I've got some for you.
Is it not
You're
Mass
not gonna
Effect 3
like
again?
It's not Mass Effect 3. So unpopular gaming opinions. 1, no cutscene should be more than 45 seconds long. If it is, there should be a warning. You should be able to fast forward, pause, rewind, and skip with no meaningful impact on the story. If your game does not thematically present me with enough information to understand what's going on without forcing me to watch a cutscene, then your game has failed. So a great example of a game where you don't need to watch any cutscenes to know everything that's going on is Red Dead Redemption 2. Because I've played that game through twice now, and the first time I played it, I skipped every single cutscene because I hate cutscenes. And I got to the end of the game and still knew pretty much the entire story. I just replayed it, funnily enough. I bought it about 6 weeks ago. I've not quite finished it yet, but I'm replaying it. The cutscenes have added a bit of context and a bit of character development that's relatively interesting, but none which is vital. So all cutscenes should be less than 45 seconds and should be skippable. That's my first one. The
Just
second,
very quickly, I'm
yes.
just going to join in because I agree, because I played Metal Gear Solid 4, and I swear to God there was a cutscene in there that was about the same length as a feature film, because I kept thinking, I was like, oh, it'll finish now. And I remember then having to, my gaming time, like physical game time, had elapsed, and I was still in the middle of this cutscene, and I was like, I played for like 20 minutes, and I've sat here for the rest of it. But anyway, I agree, go on.
And also, second part to that, but I've got another thing, is cutscenes should then be found in a repository where you should go back and watch them. So old PC games all let you do this. I specifically remember a game called Combat Free Space, which was a space combat game. That actually had quite a few cutscenes that were relatively good. You could go back and watch them all in your own time, and they were just in a list, and it explained like where on the game you had seen that cutscene. And it was really good because you could go back and watch the ones you really liked and like watch them again and try and get more details, or you had to make choices and you could go back and rewatch the cutscene to try and give yourself more information. So that's what I liked that. And they were all very short. My second one is that cheating in single-player games is both honourable, desirable, and essential, and all single-player games should have cheats unlocked at all times, or dev tools, or something like that. Why? Because I'm old and grumpy and tired, and I have to go to work every day, and then I've got to come home and cook. And then when I'm done cooking, I've got to do stuff like this, which is basically work. So I want to play the game on easy mode sometimes, but sometimes even easy mode is too hard, and I just want to literally just watch the game exist. Zoo Tycoon is a great example. No, Planet Zoo. I just want to put some pandas in a zoo. I don't want to fuck around with money. I just want to zoom right in and watch the panda like roll down a hill. That's all I want from the game. So do not force me to play it on hard mode if I don't want to. It's a single player. I paid for it already. I paid for your game, so let me play it however I want to. There are people out there who don't want to cheat and want to play it on hard mode, and good on them. I'm glad you enjoy that. I'm sure you have a very easy job, but there are other people who do not want to play hard mode. I want it to be so easy that I can't lose. Anyone here who can tell me that Vice City is better without cheats is lying. Absolutely lying. And games that don't let you cheat on single player, to be clear, can get in the bin.
Can I chime in on that?
Really
on the
good.
first 2 points. Firstly, the being able to like, I disagree with the whole like, if your cutscene lasts and you can't do the thing, you failed. But there's a game that does that very well, and it's Doom and Doom Eternal, the most recent two. So when you wait, the very first thing that happens in Doom, you wake up on this pedestal, you smash this demon's face in, you get a gun, and then you're good to go. There's then this little tiny cutscene where the screen comes out, and you try and you're trying to get through a door or something like that, and this person starts talking to you, and they're just about to explain the lore, and your guy, the Doomslayer, just throws the screen aside and just walks through the door. Now, you can stay in place and listen to what this person says if you want some background and lore. Alternatively, you can fuck off and kill demons, because the Doom guy clearly doesn't give a shit about lore. But if the player does, they can. They can sit there and listen to the things that are going on and understand what's going on. You don't have to. Fuck it. Who cares? Also, I definitely remember Metal Gear Solid 3 having it. I don't know if 4 did, but it did have a repository with all of the cutscenes, so you could go back and watch them.
It's a really good system.
Yeah.
The new
Yes,
Modern
it
Warfare 2 2022 has that as well. It's got all the cutscenes. You can go, you can go back and watch it, which I think is
he's actually
a
bought
really
it
good
like
idea.
the rest of us.
Also, yes, if you can't skip a cutscene, that really sucks. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just not interested. Or I'm playing the game through again, and I'm not watching the cutscenes, I'm just playing the game. I want to skip. I want to press the start button and go to skip. Or hold down circle for 3 seconds and skip. I don't just... It's the story over. Okay, now I can play.
Right.
Also, non-electronic gaming, but D&D 5th edition is the best version, and anyone who disagrees can get in the comments and fight me.
Somebody will fight you that 3.5 is the best, and somebody else will tell you that AD&D is the best. But the person who tells you that AD&D is the best probably has like severe arthritis and can't fight you.
Anyone who thinks 3.5 is the best, it's so crunchy and clunky, and like I don't want to have to open my book every time I want to put down a tree. Anyway, which sometimes I do. Get in the comments.
Your unpopular opinion, please, and I know what this is, and it's going to hurt me even more.
The Witcher 3 sucks. The Witcher 3 sucks.
Oh.
The Witcher 3 sucks. I hate the story. I hate the characters. I hate the gameplay. I hate the world. I hate the combat. I hate the magic. I really want to like The Witcher. I watched the Netflix series, which is okay. I haven't played 1 and 2, so I don't know. I don't know much about the lore of Witcher because I've not played the first or the second one. But everyone raves about how good The Witcher 3 is, how the open world is majestic, and it's like the controls are crap. All right, it controls like shit. I'm just not interested. I'm not interested, and it sucks because it looks like I really would be. But I'm just not interested. The thing that killed it for me was I've attempted to get into this game about 3 or 4 times now. I've tried to play through 3 or 4 times because I really want... Maybe I'm just bad at it, which is fine. But there was a bit where one of the... I went through this mission, something for the Bloody Baron. And it's the one where you... He's got this kid that's turned into a changeling or something. Botchling. And there's that whole mission. And I remember going through that thinking, yeah, that was a mission. And I remember somebody saying to me, oh yeah, that's a really good mission. It's like the best mission in the game. I was like, that's the best mission in the game? Nah, I'm alright. I'm okay. The other thing that killed it for me on another attempt was I was going through a very small fishing village, and these 2 attack dogs came out. And again, blame me for being crap at the game, fine. But I got killed by these 2 dogs. I'm not necessarily bad at games, but I got killed by these 2 dogs because I got caught on this like fishing net thing, and it was like a solid object, and I got pinned against it, and I couldn't attack them. And I was just like, I'm Geralt of Rivia. I'm supposed to... These are fucking dogs! In the beginning of the game, I took down a griffin, and I just got killed by fucking dogs. Fuck this game. I'm sorry if you like The Witcher 3. Power to you for liking The Witcher 3, because I wish I did. But I don't. It's shit, and I'm sorry.
Go.
So coming back on that one, pal, I love The Witcher 3. I have never completed the game. I have only ever got about 20% of the way through it.
That's
because
even worse.
I know, and you're gonna hate me. You're gonna hate me for the reasons. I've read the books. I've listened to the audiobooks. Love them both. I played The Witcher 1. For its time, very good, but it's a bit limited.
Yeah, clunky.
It was 2010, wasn't it? So sort of Skyrim. Witcher 2, reasonably good, and followed the story quite nicely. Witcher 3, the problem I have with The Witcher 3 is I waited about 10 years to play The Witcher 3 after 1 and 2. I only started playing it probably 8 months ago. You have to know so much about what happened in 1 and 2 for it to make any sense at all. I remember, because I'd watched the TV show and read the books and listened to the audiobooks, my timeline in my head was all over the place, which, you know, for anyone who's seen the TV show, kind of fits, but actually the games always followed a sort of systematic timeline. I could not remember what was going on in The Witcher 3. I did not know where in the timeline I was. I didn't know why I should care about many of the people because I couldn't remember anything, and the game did a very, very bad job of making me want to care.
Yeah.
I remember it was like, you've got to go and find Yennefer, and I was like, nah, she was a bit of a pain in the arse in the first 2 games, to be honest. I probably won't bother. This is an open world game. I don't need to. No, you do need to. You can't do anything until you do that. Oh, right, okay, so it's not really an open world game. And I agree that the combat in it was janky. Given that it came out 4 years after Skyrim and was basically the same combat system, magic, bladed weapons, ranged weapons, horse travel, moderate range. Third person versus first, I grant you for most of it, but shouldn't really matter. How did they manage to do it so badly when Skyrim did it so well 4 years later? So I hate to agree with you because I still want to like it. I've still got to download it, despite having to go and buy a new hard drive last week. I still downloaded on my old SSD, but I haven't played it for over a year, and it's just not good.
See if I can get Steam up.
I want to like it.
Because I definitely have it on here. So I've played a couple of hours on PlayStation, and I've played an hour on PC.
That's it. Just so I can come back on somebody in this bit, because Ollie, I think all 3 of us agree with yours, because mobile game, like, if AAA gaming has bad sales and bad advertising, mobile gaming has the worst false advertising bullshit. It really does. And the fact that
almost every game is a lie. Like, every advert you see is a downright 90% total bollocks lie.
And they all reuse the same exact thing. It's always like every game in every genre has someone running down a road, hitting marks, and something saying, "Oh no, you failed. Can you do better?" So, but on the cutscene bit, I agree they should be skipped. But I think some games do long cutscenes really well, and I'm not going to jump to Metal Gear Solid because a lot of people can tear that down. I will say a load of the Quantic Dream games do long cutscenes really well. Heavy Rain, I love. Fahrenheit is a cult classic in my opinion, and even Detroit Become Human, because technically they are all really long cutscenes, but the way they convey a story and the way that you're allowed to influence them is just like, I haven't seen another game do. Like, obviously, I can't even remember what the name of that one was with Willem Dafoe. Yeah, see,
Beyond Two Souls, but there's also, I'll give you a better example. The Quarry or Until Dawn.
Yes, 80s B-movie horror films, yeah. Like, Metal Gear did have a problem in 4. Had a huge problem in 4, where it was like, oh crap, we have to wrap up everything in one game. And they did make a small film where a game happens to be a part of it. But I will come back and say, that one in the very middle where it's like, 4 separate cutscenes with 3 little codec things, and it's stupid. But I would argue that some games do long cutscenes really well. And if you haven't played Detroit, you should play it. It's really good. And to end on a much higher note, we wanted to speak about the games we played the most in 2022. There were a couple that came out that we had really been looking forward to that had not disappointed us, albeit at the time. One of our ancestors could have aged very, very badly based on the current Steam reviews for it.
So, most played this year is Stellaris. For one essential reason, the same reason that I gave for some of my other ones. It is slow-paced, doesn't take too much time. That it doesn't take too much time. I can do other things while Stellaris is running. I'm sure there are people out there who play Stellaris like, like this. They're all over the place and they've got hotkeys set up and there's, one of those
like the Minority Report computer.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely not how I play it. I like have a YouTube video running or I've got a film on. Usually I play multiplayer with you, well, mostly Vaughn, and we'll just be chatting away in the background. I have some music on. It's more of a sort of click and response game, and it is just really nice to play at that level. I played a multiplayer with Vaughn where we were playing against some of his friends, and they were all really good at it. And I died about 8 minutes into what turned into a 7-hour game, and they wouldn't let me die. They keep making me come back as different clans or different races just to kill me again. And I was like, this isn't why I play this game, so I stopped. But yeah, most played this year at Stellaris with almost 300 hours. Well, that's actually over 2 years, but it's probably about half this year.
So most game I played this year is Dead by Daylight, mainly for streaming reasons, because I was streaming it quite a lot. Up until my wedding, I was doing at least 1 or 2 streams a week where it was Dead by Daylight. I really enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed the new characters that they kept bringing out, and I would do different challenges. But if the game I'm currently playing the most is Darktide, and if Darktide had come out at the beginning of the year, I would have rinsed that game. I've been really enjoying playing it. I've only played 8 hours, and I know it's still technically in early access, and it releases in 2 days from today's recording.
Yeah, 30.
But it's something, I can't remember which one of us said it, but they said that like the core, if you release a game early, as long as the core gameplay is sound, the little bugs, the little patches aren't really a problem. And currently, even though Darktide is still technically early access beta until 2 days from now, the core gameplay is sound. It works pretty well. There are crashes, there are bugs, but I'm still enjoying the hell out of it. And I can't wait to play more and experience more as time goes on, as they start adding new content, as more content becomes available to me as I level up. And experiencing the different characters, the different classes and how they go about as well. At first I started out with the Psyker. I really enjoyed the Psyker, but then I went as the Ogryn, and I just smash everything with the Ogryn. It's great. So it's Dead by Daylight in actual numbers, but I've been enjoying the hell out of Darktide.
I love how everyone just looks at me like we all know
the answer.
Yeah,
Just
come
say
on.
it.
So I got really into World of Warships.
There it is.
I really like it for the similar reasons that Snake is. I like playing it on my own because once I learned about the mechanics, actually, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Learning about, your detection radius and the smoke radiuses and like the different roles that the ship classes play and stuff like that. And actually, it's really quite enjoyable because you're playing against real players to think, okay, this is what I need to do. What did they think I'm going to do? So I can counterplay that. And, is the smart play here to try and sink that battleship? Or actually, is it smarter to play for time, play for the win, play for the points, play for this, that and the other, and go from that? I also think, actually, aesthetically, I actually think it's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
The art department, every update, they keep putting HD textures on new maps and new ships. It's absolutely beautiful. Like the attention to detail on some of the ships is outrageous, and the attention to detail on some of the maps is gorgeous. I really like that. I did fall into the grind. I actually found it all right. I kind of actually started to like the whole grinding out for credits and XP and whatnot. But I have started to get a little bit jaded with it recently, with like a little bit too much. It's fine if you have time, but as soon as you start not having time, it does start to grate on you a bit. But yeah, so that's what I've played the most this year. Probably won't be that next year, with any doubt. But
I mean, we make fun of you, but I'm with you in terms like I tried a bunch of freemium games when money got tight and whatever. Out of all of them, I would say World of Warships is probably the best. Because I've tried World of Tanks. It is far too Twitch shooter and all based on who can get in there first. There's no strategy to it, in my opinion. War Thunder, the controls suck. They really do.
So World of Warships, it very much depends on the team. If you have relatively good players on your side, there's a chance that the map will go relatively well, but there are too many blowouts on that game where within 3 or 4 minutes, half your team's been sunk, and the other
That
team's
why you
got
don't
full
play
health.
with us anymore.
Yeah. But
So not only that, but they limit the squads to 3 people. We're
Yes.
4, so it was,
Yeah.
we were always trying to jank the game to get the 4th person in, which never worked. And I get why they've done it, because a squad of 4 is way too powerful, but it does start to grate a little
you know
bit.
what? You know what freemium game it reminded me of the most, and I think it's the reason why I latched onto it early on. Do you remember Dreadnought?
Oh, I bloody love that game.
It was slow paced. It was all about positioning and You've muted yourself, by the way. So
One in space.
yes,
Yes.
Yes, I do remember
How
that.
fun did we find that as a group of 4? Because it was all
It was
about
great.
everyone had their role, everyone had their tactics, everyone had, a job to do. And that's what I think World of Warships does really well. Everybody has their role, and if everyone does their job, you're gonna win. Now, if somebody goes off and does a me in a Corvette, or in this case, a destroyer, because I have no fucking clue about strategy, and just flies in, fuck you. But as much as we laugh at you for World of Warships, I don't blame you. It is a really good game. I could do some shameless self-promotion and say Red Dead 2, which I've been replaying this year in order to get the playthrough series in, which is, to be fair, it's a running joke at Ollie's expense, so it was necessary. Having to relearn a game with that many systems after that long, I think I have no idea how I survived my first firefight. I mean, I spent most of the time thinking, how can I pick up my fucking hat?
You do lose your hat a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, in all honesty, the game I have played the most this year has been Stellaris, like Snake. But unlike Snake, who does stuff in the background, I really love the way Stellaris does story through gameplay. Like, if you just play defensive and if you play isolationist, you maybe get about a 16th of the overall game. And what's the best thing about it is every game you play can go differently. Like, I've probably been in 4 major games so far, and no one has won twice. No one's done better. Like, in the most recent one, Snake will know this name, but Ed joined a federation with another player almost immediately, but he had an internal revolt.
Nice.
So one of his own star systems went independent, and then he got kicked out of the Federation straight away.
Nice.
Like,
Get out your own federation.
Yeah, and it was just chef kiss, beautiful irony. But Stellaris is one of those games where you can lose so much time and not even know it, which I think is a great way to explain a good game. Like, the fact that I started teaching somebody how it works at 8 o'clock, and we had to stop because we realized it was midnight. Like, Stellaris just has that thing. Now, I will say I don't appreciate a lot of the business side of Stellaris and Paradox in general. Like, their DLC practice is shit. The fact that they leave out huge chunks of the game and then release them for 15 quid every 4 months or something like that is a big problem. But the fact that you can mod it to death, essentially, is a way to get around that. Like, and we've learned that as long as somebody has all of the DLC you want, everybody else can join their game and just benefit from it. And look out for next year when we finally get around to playing this Mass Effect mod as a group.
One day.
One bloody day when I get them all to find time.
It's great, isn't it? Like, big respect to the
They've done a really good job.
A really interesting example that you mentioned, Dark Tide, because it's the opposite of what we said a minute ago about The Witcher. And Moose said this specifically. Moose doesn't know anything about Warhammer whatsoever, no interest in it, doesn't care about the lore, just wants to play computer games. I love Warhammer 40k lore. We both get the same amount out of this game because he goes in and smashes things and has a great time, and I walk around the ship going, oh my god, look at that, this is really cool, I love all this. But it doesn't force you at any point to know anything. But if you want to and you enjoy it, they've done a really good job of making that enjoyable for people. And that is a great way of building a game.
It is properly made. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, so I went to a friend of mine who's really into his 40k, and I asked, what books can I read, or specifically listen to, because I listen to audiobooks more than I read. What books can I listen to that will help me give context to this game? And I've started listening to First and Only, the Gaunt's Ghosts series. He gave me really that and the Eisenhorn collection, and something else. I can't remember what it was.
Have you got the Eisenhorn collection audiobooks? Because I've been trying to get my hands on those for ages.
No. Because I've been doing it through Audible. This is not sponsored by Audible, but I've been doing it through Audible. I've only got the first one. So I've got the First and Only, and I've got whatever the first book of the Eisenhorn series is on Audible. I think I can gift it to you, actually, if you wanted it.
They are the best. The 3 Eisenhorn books are the best intro to Warhammer lore, definitely.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll listen to First and Only because I've got to a really interesting bit in that, and then I'll try Eisenhorn.
Like, you can tell Darktide's been made by a company that knows Warhammer and respects it. Like, you see so many, like, Games Workshop are a victim of their own, I don't know, policy, because they hand out the license to anyone at this point, like, and they just expect that 1 or 2 will be really good. And for a while they got away with it because the Dawn of War and the Total War games kind of held it up. Space Marine came out of nowhere, and Vermintide, like, everyone's. I actually prefer. Bit of more of an unpopular opinion. I actually prefer Vermintide 2 to Left 4 Dead.
Fair.
I really. I mean, admittedly, I also prefer Back 4 Blood to Left 4 Dead, which is
I prefer Back 4 Blood to Left 4 Dead.
Yeah. Left 4 Dead was sort of made, and that's kind of where it left itself off. But Back 4 Blood and Vermintide and any of the other kind of clones like that, they all built off of what Left 4 Dead was, because Left 4 Dead was like, it's like a core gameplay, it's like a genre. And then all these other games have gone, okay, well, what if we implement a card system so that people can have different parts?
Yes.
Or Vermintide was, what if zombies were rats and there were millions of them?
And what if we gave them big duck-off hammers to go bonk?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, Darktide, like, just standing in the hub area, it's so clear how much attention to details, like, because you can pick out little details around, like, that's the Inquisitor's symbol, see all the different tech, and the fact it looks like a proper gothic, dystopian future is incredible. And, like, all the environments, if they weren't trying to kill me, I would probably spend a lot of time just looking around going, oh, it's the pretty lights.
Yeah.
It's interesting,
I'm just waiting for someone to say exterminatus, and then I'll choose myself.
It goes back to what Snake was saying before, in that, you're standing there in the middle of the game going, wow, look at the gearing on that architecture and look at the ball bearings. Meanwhile, I'm standing there at the front with, let's be honest, a car exhaust or like 3/4 of a ton's worth of hammer, going, this is great, I can twat this guy. And then as you're watching, you'll just see this person just fly across the screen and like, hammered him. And I'm enjoying it from a different perspective. In, even though it's beta, like the optimization, like there can be hundreds of assets on screen with, fire and things like that, and the frame rate's really stable. So I'm enjoying it from a gameplay perspective. I don't really care about the lore, if I'm brutally honest.
No, that's fine.
But you are. But it's quite nice that the game can kind of do both. And I imagine I am not. I imagine I am not the only person who doesn't really care about who doesn't care about 40k, but who's playing with friends who do, and we're both enjoying the game.
You put your hand up, Smee, but you collect Death Guard.
So I collected Death Guard because a friend of mine bought me Death Guard.
All right, fair enough.
I don't like Space Marines. That's my controversial opinion. That is not gaming related.
No one likes Space Marines. They get all the lore. They get all the updates from Games Workshop. Fuck.
Tom, there are too many people that like Space Marines. That's why they get all the lore, Tom.
Imperial Guard for life, brother. That's
why I like Age of Sigmar, because it's just like, yeah, you could be You could be any of the interesting factions from Age of Sigmar, but I can be rats. I can just have an army of fucking angry rats and send them at people. And their constitution, or whatever it's called within that game, their morale is so shit that you can send in a bunch of rats and half your army will run away. But it's great. I love that. I bought so a friend of the friend I asked the 40k help. His friend was selling off his Skaven army, and I bought it for 50 quid. And it's got all sorts of different... It had like hundreds of models in it. And it's not that they were expensive. It's just that like when you buy rats, you buy a lot of rats, because that's the whole point of rats, is you have more rats than... Yeah, it's a horde army. But fuck, I love just chucking rats at people. I've only played 2 or 3 games of a tabletop. And it's so great to just go... that's a nice little army you've got over there, but I'm going to surround it with rats. And then they just smash through the rats, like they do in Vermintide. They're just like one swing and 4 rats are dead. And I'm just like, that's great. Here's more rats. Here's rats with sniper rifles. Here's a bell that's on fire. I don't know what it does, but I put other rats behind it.
Stop, man! Stop!
Yeah.
Here's a bell that's on fire, and there's someone riding it, but I push it forward, and everyone just dies of plague. It's awesome.
And also, it's like they're the weakest race possible in Age of Sigmar, but they've invented nukes.
They've invented
The fuck?
nukes.
You can't even stop them.
Well, if you've made it to the end of this, then frankly, what on earth have you been doing with your life? In all seriousness, thank you very much for watching. We plan to do this again at the end of this year, and hopefully this time I won't sit on the footage for about 4 months. Anyway, see you next time.